have a voice.
Did I just hear that right?
Radio is a great way to connect with the community.
This is the number one station.
Voice of the People, 96.1 FM.
Well, within 3 weeks of becoming President Bola Tinubu ignited a roasting of Nigeria's economy. Well, we know how that goes. Now, within a month of becoming the chairman of the ECOWAS, he is leading the 48-year-old sub-regional group towards a war and disintegration. Or is he? Well, the National Assembly has rejected Tinubu's request for parliamentary backing or for military adventure in Niger Republic. Tinubu sent a letter last week to the Senate seeking its support for a raft of sanctions jointly agreed with other member countries and military build-up for deployment of personnel for military intervention to enforce compliance of the military junta in Niger should they remain recalcitrant. Now, the National Assembly went ahead and, declined this move. Still on the same matters, still on this same issue. The ECOWAS gave 7 days ultimatum for the reinstatement of the deposed President Mohamed Bazoum in Niger Republic, and it expired yesterday. Now we know that the current administration of Niger Republic they've closed their airspace because they are worried about these situations, and what it could bring. Last Sunday, ECOWAS had an emergency meeting where it gave, the meeting was led by General Tiachani, right, who is the current leader of Niger Republic. And they asked him to reinstate. He was given until today to reinstate, Mr. Bazoum or risk military intervention. Severe economic sanctions have already been imposed on Niger Republic in a bid to get them to comply with their demands. What our concerns are today is how does this affect Nigeria? Niger is a sovereign nation on its own, but then it's a neighbor to Nigeria. In fact, we've seen videos where we've seen pictures of the borders between Nigeria and Niger Republic, and that they are a neighbor. They are just like, leaving your house and go to another area, In the house today to help us have this conversation is one person that would just always come through whenever I reach out to him, and he will say, Chiwi, I don't know how you're dragging me out of my house. And he does it every time, and I'm really grateful for it. Thank you for joining us. Kunle Adeni is a political analyst, and you are always doing justice to everything that we ever come up with to discuss here. So thank you very much for coming.
I don't know who you are.
Right, you know that.
So fair for all the way you used to drag me.
I will do my best. If Tinubu decides to be friendly to us, we can start to do this thing.
I hope your best will be good enough. I think before we start, let's also give the thumbs up to our girls, the Super Falcons.
Oh, yes.
It felt like it was going to be gloomy coming into the studio, but...
Well, I mean, it was pretty gloomy for me because I like to win to the latter. If I'm not completely winning, I'm not winning at all.
Well, you cannot win it all and you cannot have it
Absolutely.
all. I mean, because I think one thing is clear, despite all that you listed out in your intro, talking about, the situation that we are facing in the country, we still had that flying flag proud moment. I mean, a lot of people wanted that to see that upset.
I mean,
you have been colonizing us all this while. Let us be the ones send you backing out of of the World Cup.
And you know,
But unfortunately, that did not happen. But I think we must give it to them. They need all the encouragement. I think they planned to hold them as much as they could. But tactically, when it came to the issue of penalties, I don't think our coach was really prepared for it.
I don't think
now I see where the name the Lioness comes from.
They were ready.
10 men down, and
they still held the fort.
So,
Hopefully
but not a bad outing, not a bad outing for the Falcons. They did their best, and so everyone just cheer up. The fact that Nigeria still had something to cheer about in the midst of the headache of Niger.
I was very proud. I was very proud of, there was a moment. I and my HOP, we were having a conversation yesterday, and we had screams downstairs, and you should have seen how we raced down, and everybody was anxious. The moment we lost the second, I was like, okay, I'm out of here.
No, you know, the moment I knew we were not going to come back was we played 10 men down,
and then it was
unfortunately our attacking front couldn't getting the goals. If we were going to get the goals, it should have been because
before the
you could play extra time. They were both ready to go goalless. Now the only question was whether we were ready for the penalty shootout. Unfortunately, I don't think we were.
Well, in the spirit of being ready, I was going to say, are we ready for war? But let's not get into
taking the conversation away from football.
Let's come
back. At least we are ready for something. We don't know whether we are ready for the other.
Ready for this. Now, let's begin with your general overview of the matter. This issue has dragged on for a while now. Nigerians at first were saying, it's not going to be that serious. Nigeria done what they've done. Let's move on to Nigerian issues. But every time we keep being drawn back to it, with our president being very
at the center.
And many people are saying, your responsibility is first to Nigerians, so before it is to ECOWAS. But let us look at, what is your overview, your personal view of the recent military coup in Niger and the significance it has on within the West African context?
Okay, so there's actually a lot at stake for us. That's why sometimes, like you said, there are conversations you want to do away with, but the question is, can you really do away with these conversations? Now, there are so many sides to this conversation, and I've had reasons to share my views, especially on other various platforms in a couple of days, because it's one that it's an incident that happened about a week ago, and like you rightly stated, there was an emergency session with ECOWAS, which was prompted by that event of the coup in Niger, and of course there was a timeline. And why we are having this conversation right now is because the deadline that was given by ECOWAS, it's like you said, you have a time frame to do this, and if you don't do this, this is going to be the repercussion. But I think where a lot of us are concerned is what the intended repercussion is, and whether as a country we can actually afford to bear the consequences. Because why I want to take it in that direction is that when you look at it, the question is, do we have more to lose, or do they also have more to lose if they were to go to war with us? And you also ask yourself, what was the reason behind the coup plotters, taking over power in the way and the manner at which they did? But let's take it from there. Now, it is not out of place for ECOWAS to want to intervene in the way and the manner at you. You asked me for my view, and we always like to put it in the right perspective. It's not out of place for ECOWAS to want to intervene, because don't forget that Mali is not just a nation on its own. They are also part of the ECOWAS body. And what does that mean? You also have to abide. Don't forget that for every country that is a member of the ECOWAS group, there is a treaty that was signed, which forms there are about 11 basic principles that was signed in the ECOWAS treaty, with which Mali, Niger is also a part of. And one of those principles also talks about maintaining peace through good neighborliness and among the West African region. You also talk about ensuring that there is peaceful coexistence, and then that there is good democratic governance among the West African communities. So, of course, you know that if you are bound by that treaty that was signed, for you to become a member of the Economic West African States, of course, you must also operate. It's like you have an institution, blessing, like this institution, for instance. There are laws guiding the organization and the running of the place. Should you default, then of course it is expected that there will be punishment, there will be sanctions for you to, if you default against that. So so when you have a principle of upholding democratic governance, for instance, you know that can only come through a good democratic process, and a process that allows the will of the people to prevail. But of course, people have the conversation as to how much of the will of the people is also prevailing even back in the country that is spearheaded. And that's why you notice that even the resolutions, even on the part of some Western leaders, West African leaders, they have not been so unanimous in the meeting and the decisions that have been held in recent time. In fact, it got so serious to the point where by the time the security chiefs, talking about the defense chiefs of the various West African countries, we are meeting in Abuja, we could see sign that some of the countries were already pulling out. They didn't see the need for a military action, and so they understood the implications, and they understood the impact. Now, a lot of us have felt that, look, you don't always use the carrot and stick approach at every point in conflict, because one of the principles is with ECOWAS is also peaceful conflict resolution, and there are various steps. I mean, we have observed the political landscape. We understand a bit of international diplomacy and what it entails. And you know that one of the principles is ensure peaceful conflict resolution. So when you talk about peaceful conflict resolution, bless you, what does it mean? It means that you exhaust all of the necessary diplomatic options available for you within reach before you can now use the last resort, which is the use of a military intervention. And of course, you know that this is not the first time that ECOWAS has always deployed the use of a military intervention in trying to restore peace in West African countries. The question is, have they always been successful? Or, like you asked about the impact, there is also the other impact of it. The fact that beyond just not trying to ensure that there is you help reinstate democracy, right? You also look at the long-term effect of this conflict. Sometimes when you deploy a military solution, blessing, it takes a lot of time for you to actually restore civil rule back into that country. I give you case studies of Ivory Coast. I give you case studies of Guinea-Bissau. In fact, in Guinea-Bissau, I think at different points in time where the ECOWAS tried to intervene, at some point in time, ECOWAS first deployed over 600 troops in Guinea-Bissau. I think in the crisis of 2017, thereabout, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to be sure I get the dates very correctly. At certain point in time in Guinea-Bissau, you had ECOWAS troops being deployed, and at every point where there was a coup attempt, blessing, you guess what? The military intervention did not help avert the coup. In fact, they went 3 times, and for those 3 subsequent times that they went, they actually failed to restore peace back into the region. And let me give you the years at which it happened. In 1999, the first ECOWAS troop that was sent, they even sent a combined forces of not just ECOWAS and ECOMOG. They sent combined forces of 600 troops. But what happened? They had to redeploy the troops back because the coup was successful. They could not succeed in their mission of stopping the military intervention, and barely 3 months during that duration, the rebels seized power. And so it got out of the control of even those that were going to intervene in restoring democracy. Within that period of time, in 2012 as well, another mission was deployed. But guess what? Instead of deterring the coup plotters and reinstating the political structure back, they failed. Back to 2022 as well. I'm talking of recent. They sent over 631 of them. And what happened? It was another failed attempt.
I mean, recently, Tinubu went to Guinea-Bissau to visit Nigerian troops. Very recently. And that's because there has been instability there still. But that would bring me to my next question, which would be... sovereign nations do have a right to decide what kind of governance they want. And now, this sovereign nation has decided, Niger, I'm talking now, have decided they want a military. We've seen on the media, because we're not there, but we've seen on the media, most of the population are on the side of the coup. of the military. They want the military in position, and this could be. I mean, after we did a little bit of research, if you do a little bit of research, you find out it's because they've lost faith in the democratic process. Someone made I saw a video on Twitter, I think yesterday, of the head of the coup, the person who
the coup plotter.
Yeah, the coup plotter himself.
Regime.
He was walking in the stadium and people were just hailing him, and some people were even trying to go and hug him and things like that.
I think that was Mali.
Okay, that was Mali. Yes, that was Mali.
Yes.
And someone said that if he's that popular, yes, it's the Mali guy, the young one,
youngest president.
the youngest sitting president now, military president. He's 33 years old.
Yes.
And people said if he's that popular, why didn't he just run for office? And someone said a reply to that comment was, well, because in Africa, your votes don't count. And you know that there are so many African countries where this is held. That would explain, bringing us back to before I derail.
Because some people will tell you that the easiest way of getting rid of an illegitimate, of a government whose legitimacy is in question is through a military coup. And that's why some countries, their leaders, military leaders always have it easy without any, and once they get one form of backing somewhere or support, they don't have a problem upsetting the civilian government. And like you rightly made reference to, you ask yourself, what usually is the reaction of the people when incidents like this happen? And I think this is where the Nigerian government has been, a lot of people have said, have advised that we need to tread carefully, because in the first place, I think, like I said, it is not out of place for ECOWAS to say, let's try and restore democracy back. I mean, because this is part of what these are the agreements that, I mean, as the part of the protection that you get. So I mean, when you form a bloc, there are certain benefits that comes with it, and the upholding democracy, for instance, is one of those principles. I told you about how the attempt at restating democracy failed in a country like Guinea-Bissau. We also had it fail in a country like Ivory Coast, even though it was later successful. But a military intervention ended up splitting the country into two. And for quite a while. But let's look at another situation where it was also successful. In the Gambia, can I take you back to the case of Yahya Jammeh? You remember President Yahya Jammeh and, of course, Adama Barrow, which was not a case of a coup per se, maybe a democratic coup, because you had the case of Yahya Jammeh, who was running for re-election, and he lost the re-election. And, of course, you saw President Adama Barrow also winning, and for one reason or the other, there was an attempt by Yahya Jammeh to actually try to hold on to power for quite some time. And what happened? You saw ECOWAS sending it. In fact, they didn't even go to the Gambia directly. They had to use one of the African neighboring African countries, to sneak into, and of course, before they were able to. I
mean, my question: what would bother me, or many Nigerians, so to speak, is the ECOWAS not now crying more than the bereaved? Because if the people are saying we want this military rule, is the ECOWAS not crying more than the bereaved?
Well, for a lot of observers and onlookers, it would appear so, because you made reference to the situation in Niger. There was also a similar situation in Mali, which has had its own share as well of military coup. But most of recent is the one we saw where you saw the video of the president, the 33-year-old, the youngest to be president in Africa. You could see him walking in the stadium, and blessing, even with all of the security attaches that he had, you could see the cheers of the crowd. So for one reason or the other, the people seem to have, I mean, even though it's a wrong approach, it's a wrong way of letting the will of the people prevail, but it's something that these people seem to have appreciated and seem to have welcomed. Why that is, it's another conversation entirely. Were they even, another question is, in as much as you understand that they are usually military operations, the question is, what did they do differently to get the buy-in of the civilians? Because that is another situation we are seeing in Niger right now, where a coup was carried out successfully, and as against what usually is the unilateral reaction from the citizens, we've seen it happen. Look at the case of the Gambia. There were protests when there was an
Exactly.
attempt at a democratic coup, not even a military coup, there were protests, and that led to ECOWAS intervening.
Yeah.
And at some point, they were able to reinstate Adama Barrow, even after negotiating a peaceful exile deal for Yahya Jammeh, and he was able to get in. Now, that is because they knew what they wanted, and they knew that this was the person that was deserving to lead us. Now, you have a situation where the military is not known for its conventional means. The military is not known for upholding the rights of the people. In fact, there are usually certain rights that people are denied of, especially if you are really active, if you were born, I don't know how old you were when we experienced some of the military regimes in Nigeria. You could see that there are certain entitlements that does not come with being under a military terrain. You are ruled by decrees and the likes and whatnot. And so when you have that kind of setting, as against a democracy where you are guaranteed certain rights and freedom, and the people are saying that, look,
We still want the military.
There must be something that makes the people believe that the democratic system that we had was not even favoring us. And why? It comes to the question that you raised, talking about the issue of influences, Blessing. Why was it that they were not getting the best out of the democracy and the good governance that made them celebrate? There are also some people that believe that even though we had a democratic governance, right, a system of governance, we were still operating under and I will say anyway, even I really don't know if we have stopped operating, but over there, they will say they were still operating under Western influence. I mean, you could see exactly struggling. And so, what were they struggling about? The fact that you have a situation where you could see the retaliation against France, for instance, where their embassies had to be attacked and the likes of them, even leading to emergency evacuation of some of their citizens. You could see the reaction that, look, there is a feeling that there is a certain Western influence, right, on the democratically installed government, which they don't necessarily believe that they were fully involved in probably instituting. And then as a result of that, because these guys come, for instance, what is their benefit if we're being under Western influence? There is the fear that the Western influence has been responsible for the depletion of their resources. These guys just come in, take their resources, and they use it to their own purpose. And some of them probably are dissatisfied that they are really getting little or not. In fact, they may be getting nothing. You see, Africa is blessed with so much resources, but the development is little or nothing to write home about. I think that is where the people that have successfully planned this coup actually are getting the buy-in of their people. That some people are selling your resources to Westerners and depriving you that you are supposed to be benefiting from it, the access to benefit from it.
Absolutely.
Because it doesn't make no sense why something that the people should kick against, you could see the people jubilating.
I mean, that was the first thing that got to me when I first heard about the entire thing. I was like, oh, okay, this is bad. I started to feel bad for the people, thinking mayhem was going to.
Exactly.
And then the next updates, you see people are celebrating in the
Cheers,
street.
reactions.
And when I saw burning, I saw videos of, destruction and all of that. I thought it was the military just for me to see civilians. And what did I hear? They were doing it to the former, that's the ousted president and his administrators, and that would bring me to another concern that we do have, and I wish that we had the time to press into it, but I've just got 2 minutes, so maybe we can just touch on it, then we go take a break, and then we would come back and continue with the conversation. But it's the concern I have is, do you think that President Tinubu is paying more attention to this ECOWAS thing? There's a controversy that he's paying attention to it so much because it's seeming like something that could happen in Nigeria.
Well, we don't want it to happen in Nigeria.
Absolutely not.
We have been told by the military that they will protect the democracy of the country at all costs. But I mean, yes, you may understand why people are worried that we seem to be focusing on what is happening in Niger as against, because the truth is, right now, I think the president himself has a lot of headache at home. There is the most recent conversation of the formation of his cabinet, when a Nigerian is going to say that. There is the one that is biting Nigerians so hard, the state of the economy. And so a lot of people are saying, you have more headache. In fact, bless you, don't even go far. Even insecurity.
No, insecurity is a little far. Just last week, we had the NLC in the streets, and they have 7 days. The 7 days is expiring this week.
No.
We have that issue pending.
That is what issue is. Let's even relate it to the matter. Let's bring a correlation to the issue we are discussing. Even back home, we have our own insecurity concerns. That, fortunately or fortunately for us, blessing, one way or the other, the role of Niger as a member of the multinational joint task force seem to have helped in the what could have been the escalation of Boko Haram. So you see that one way or the other.
And there are ties. I mean, there are stories of ties of it having something to do with Niger.
Exactly. So imagine that those ties are severed right now. What are we? And that's why you could even feel it that the people that are objecting are also people that could be largely affected. When you talk about the 7 northern states, particularly in Nigeria,
Northeast,
that are actually sharing close borders. You have states of Borno, you have states of Katsina, you have states of Kebbi, you have states of Sokoto. Some of which also met with the president. I think even Zamfara is also among the list. So when you look at all of that, you begin to ask yourself, do we have what it takes to even secure these places? And you could see that the president is having meetings. I'm sure understanding the security risk that it could pose to us. But do we have the resources to ensure that our porous borders as it is right now can actually be safe and secure from any of such of this external influence and threats?
Let's take a pause right there. I have bills to pay. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. The conversation continues.
We have been serving you hot and fresh content on radio, and you have been loving it. Now we're taking it further. Catch us live on YouTube at BOP TV for all the juicy content you can't resist. Talk shows, exclusive interviews, news, lifestyle, and more. It's all about you. BOP TV, show up, speak up.
The award-winning pizza in the US is now here in Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Romeo, the pizza champions, and cold berry ice cream. Delight in every school. Visit any of our outlets and feel the rich taste from the pizza champions and cold berry ice cream.
At number 4, Obomosho Street,
Area 8, Gariki, Abuja, or 3rd Avenue, Gwaripa, Abuja, or Federal Housing Estate, Phase 2, Lube, Abuja. Call 0908-831-5906 or 0908-831-5908 or 0909-238-9861. Check us out on Instagram and Twitter at romeospizza.ng. Website www.romeospizza.ng. Romeo, the pizza champions.
Traveling to Lagos and desire a perfect getaway?
Look no further than the luxurious accommodations at Airport Golden Tulip Hotel, number 42 Murtala Mohammed International Road, Lagos.
Relax and unwind in our beautiful appointed rooms, featuring all the amenities you need for a comfortable stay.
Now, whether you are traveling for business or pleasure, our attentive staff is here to ensure that your every need is met. We also offer complimentary pickup and drop from the Lagos airport.
Why not take advantage of our state-of-the-art fitness center, outdoor pool, and enjoy a delicious meal at our on-site restaurant?
With stunning views, world-class service, and a prime location, Airport Golden Tulip Hotel is the perfect choice for your next vacation or business trip.
So why wait? Book your stay today and experience the ultimate in comfort and luxury at Airport Golden Tulip Hotel.
For bookings and reservations, please call 0815-8003-333 or 0815-7003-333. You can visit our website at airportgoldentuliphotel.com.
Airport Golden Tulip Hotel, where luxury meets comfort.
Believe me, believe me, believe me.
aware that Iruka Online Limited installed and designed a 100,000 capacity church building? Oh yeah, we are the sole distributors of global leading brands all over the world, such as Wafday Line Array, speakers and digital amplifiers, Preseno's digital mixers and studio equipment, Coswell workstations and keyboards, Fender guitars, Mapex drums, Ashdown bass combos, just to mention but a few. We offer flexible payment plan handled by our financial department with 24/7 customer care support system. You can visit our website on www.iruka.com to avoid buying fake products. You can also visit our showroom at number 36 Lagos International Airport Road beside Golden Tulip Hotel. Iruka, never settle for less.
Voice of the People, 96.1 FM.
Thank you for remaining with us. The conversation still continues. What is going on and how does it affect our darling nation, Nigeria? Excuse me. The ECO... I'm so sorry, guys. The ECOWAS is on high alert and the Niger Republic military coup and its implications for Nigeria. While we are very good neighbors and we do care about Niger, we care about ourselves more. And we want to be sure that we don't begin something that we would not be able to carry on with. Having a very beautiful conversation in the studio with none other than Kunle Adeni. Now, before we went on the break, we were standing on whether or not the president's eagerness to be active on this matter has something to do with his fears that, Nigeria can decide to learn or pick up a bad lesson with this, considering that we do know what the last elections were like in the country, and we do know how there's been speculations of, there's a little bit, not everybody is very settled about the way that things are going. I mean, just the NLC decided to do a protest everywhere. Everybody was shaking. Everybody was afraid that it could, spark into something else. The country is gradually becoming like, what do they call it now? Where, when it's highly flammable, you're afraid not to light anything. And, so is it possible that, the president is taking advantage of his position as the chairman of the ECOWAS to make sure that he sends out the right message out, so this is not, repeated here in Nigeria?
Well, so I don't want to also to say it's taking advantage. Blessing, it's a position that has already been placed on him. Now the question is how he manages the decision that comes with taking that position. Because as the chairman of ECOWAS, of course, all of the interest, it is for you. But like you rightly also pointed out, that you also want to, because the role that Nigeria plays is the big brother role. And they want to ensure, another message is probably that, you don't try this and there are no consequences. But like you rightly pointed out, I'm wondering how much of the respect Nigeria still has right now that can make the ECOWAS leaders actually say, do this with this so this, and if you fail to do this, this will happen. Because I remember a lot of people have given clear case studies of Liberia, or is it Liberia or Sierra Leone, one of the West African countries. If we are going to date back to the era of former President Olusegun Obasanjo, where the military hierarchy also plotted a coup, and he went there and he told them return. So the question is, what was obtainable then and what is obtainable now? Are they the same? Are the interests still aligned with each other? And do the people still place the priority right now? Because one danger you want to avoid is that, like we talked about previously, we talked about the people even having a reaction that seems to have been in support of the group. So you also do not want to create a problem where any other country or bloc the fact that you may not even be among the Western bloc like the France and the likes of them, but that seems to want to interfere, the people see you as being under a certain influence, and then they want to retaliate against you, which is why we are saying you need to tread carefully. Because if you look at our neighboring borders right now that share the state, if there is a fallout, you never can tell what the impact is likely to be. Economic wise, influx of people, already we have people that are IDPs that are already even finding their ways to countries like that. So if there is a fallout, what impact is it likely to have for us security wise and the likes? Especially, I've told you, the issue of the regional cooperation. Niger was a very key strategic partner in us dealing with this Boko Haram situation from escalating the way and manner at which it has been put at bay. So an escalation of that are there security implications for us, as against what will be the other alternative route that the ECOWAS leaders need to take. And then let's also look at another thing. I don't think I've looked at this blessing. The cost implication. Absolutely. Of going into, and I'm so glad that the Senate actually saw reasons not to approve that request, because for you to take in back on a military intervention, I hope you know that it's also going to cost money. Absolutely.
They said it may cost about 2.98 trillion, which is double the defense spending yearly as it stands.
Exactly. So when you are spending so much, we are not talking about where is this money going to come from? What are the things we are going to move around?
Now, this is going to bring me to my next, question or conspiracy. We're doing this show for clarity. So these are the things going up and about. A lot of people are applauding the National Assembly, and they're like, okay, you're not really rubber stamped. And other people are saying,
I will not say completely.
Exactly. Now, a lot of people are coming out to say, well, are we sure this is not a plan? Uncle is playing bad cop. Mr. President is out there playing bad cop and doing all of that. And he knows that his country cannot afford this. We can't actually do this. So he goes back to his people that if they are rubber stamps, goes to the National Assembly and is like, you are going to refuse this thing. I'm sending it to you. That is what you need to do so that you look good. When I saw this conversation, I saw this conversation on I heard this conversation on a Twitter space. When I say people are saying, whenever I say that, it's not a figment of my imagination. I spent a large amount of time listening to people's imagination. Yes, it could be, but doesn't this tell to how much the people have no trust in the government?
Of course it does, because when you look at the way and manner at which our system has operated so far, and you look at certain decisions that have been taken, in fact, a clear case study is the ministerial nominee screening that is going on. When you look at the way and the manner at which El has gone,
Lalong is on that list. I'm so sorry I said that out loud. Keep going, please.
So it raises issue as to what's the interest of the government. And for a lot of people, I for one, I am on the side of the people that said it should be about the interest of your citizens first. Maybe there is also the fear that if we don't take action, it could also escalate to the country. So how do we protect this from escalating and eating us in the way? There are always this school of thoughts when you are making certain decisions. Military intervention, will it almost curb the situation? There are places where it has worked.
There are other places where it has.
I've told you countries where it didn't work: Guinea-Bissau, Ivory Coast for some time, and of course we are even Mali, not so far. I've told you places where it has worked, like in the Gambia, it has worked. Although not much of a military coup, but in Liberia. But the truth is, blessing, war also always has its own consequences. Now, if you start a military intervention, you may achieve a purpose, but the conflict that you could have created is not one that can easily be put away. Liberia, for instance, you remember the conflict with President Samuel Doe? When ECOWAS sent his intervention in 1998, it took quite a lot of years. I think it didn't get into the fight with rebel forces. It didn't take. It was for more than 2 years thereabout, blessing, before power was even eventually restored to one of the rebel leaders who became president, President Charles Taylor, who became president in Liberia. And after that, you still saw the drama that played. So in some cases, it has worked.
No,
it has prevented an escalation, but in some cases it has also not. But for us, we are saying, a lot of us are saying, let us not use the force first. There is the place of diplomacy in these conversations. There is also are not working is. They also might have looked at the option of the coup plotters getting a form of backing somewhere. And we have heard that it may just be a case of one of the Western countries, Russia, trying to annex the African countries from the control of their colonial masters. Unfortunately, because the colonial masters themselves have not done the people justice with their resources. Look, someone a conversation earlier, or one of, and someone made reference to the fact that, look, go to France, for instance, with the country that colonized Niger, for instance. Go to France. Look at how beautiful the cities are. And the question is, did they develop with their own resources, or did they use resources that they got? And the country where they actually got the resources from, what is the state? So, Blessing, does that not show logic to the reason why the people showed excitement?
I mean, one of the junta chiefs, the 34-year-old actually, has, in a video, was making reference to how Africa is the richest continent in resources, but the poorest continent as it stands. And that's one of the reasons why, they are trying to take over. Question I want to ask you is, what are the chances that the coup would actually, the junta would step down? Do you think there's a plan for democracy to return? Do you see it happening with all of this back and forth? Do you see it happening? Is it feasible that the junta will step off and say, okay, let Bazoum take over with democracy?
I think the only successful thing that ECOWAS can negotiate right now, and maybe you may say it is not for me speaking to the principles of democracy, especially when you see the reactions that has come out from the people, may just be safe exit for Bazoum as against detention, like they did with Yahya Jammeh, for instance. Because if there was going to be any sign of reconciliation, look at the eminent personalities that the president dispatched to Mali, to Niger, talking about the Sultan of Sokoto and former military head of state. I mean, who understand the diplomacy. He sent two of them. Unfortunately, I don't think they even landed at the palace. They had any the presidential palace before they came back to the country. So it shows that there was no attempt at any meeting that could probably have opened peace talks. So it shows that it may not even happen anytime soon. But like you say, Blessing, they are getting a backing somewhere. And so which means that they are ready to go all out to fulfill whatever terms could have been given for them as reason to continue and for them to have embarked on that coup action. What do you now do? I think if there are areas, for instance, economic sanctions, we've seen it happen in other countries. We've seen it in fallout in different countries. Like, you remember the situation in Zimbabwe, for instance, when there was an upset or an uprising against the leader. We saw economic sanctions. People stopped supplying and the likes of them. So, in terms of if there are certain economic gains that both countries benefit from as a result, or even the economic community benefit from, you could try to isolate them if you feel they don't have enough. But don't forget, these people have also said we are taking back control of our resources.
Of our own resources.
Our own resources. So the question is, if they are to go that far, does it also mean that they have seen that they have these resources and they know what they can do with the resources and get people outside also willing to invest in their resources that could make them say we do away? So the first place is, if these peace talks had even yielded fruit, it would have been evident that, okay, these people, it doesn't look like they are willing to back down anytime soon. The most important is, for the people that celebrated it, how long are they likely to be in agreement with the arrangement? It's also another question. Because yes, you could celebrate a coup, but unlike in cases we've seen in the past in Nigeria, where coup plotters engage in coup. That was in the past.
In the past.
And then for one reason or the other, we had a system more corrupt.
Exactly where I was going.
Where the military took over, and they were more corrupt than even the democratic.
And then how do you deal with that situation
How
when
do
you
deal
don't
with
have
that?
democracy anymore?
Exactly. So there is a reason why we need to nip it in the bud. But let's not use the last result should not be the first result. Economic sanctions, probably try to isolate them. I don't know for how long they will be able to hold off. But if that doesn't work, then you may begin to think of other interventions. But those other interventions, whether it will not eventually lead to the military intervention, is another conversation entirely.
We're about to leave the studios. Do you have any final words for us in closing?
Well, so I think the final words will just be an advice to the president, whatever their advice, because some people, when you hear war, blessing, some people are also, you have to look at the interest at play. Does it bring about regional stability or destability? You also have to look at the people that are clamoring around you and say, let's take this military intervention. Do they stand to, is it for the interest of restoring power, or what they stand to benefit for the people? And if the National Assembly has said, Mr. President, we cannot afford to take this route, right? I think let's exhaust every means of diplomacy, and then after that we will just it will be left of the people of Niger to decide, because like you rightly said, they are a sovereign state. So at some point in time they should be allowed to also determine their fate.
I mean, thank you very much for that. And well, as we wrap up, the Niger Republic military coup has illuminated the critical role Nigeria plays within ECOWAS and the region. Our discussions have unveiled the challenges and opportunities that do lie ahead, underscoring the delicate diplomacy required in these times of crisis. We thank our guest for his insights. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for coming through. I told you, it's always an informative episode whenever Kole is in the house, and I'm sure that you got that for yourself. Now, and to you, thank you very much for tuning in to World Rounds. Let's remain vigilant, fostering unity and stability in West Africa. Stay informed and stay engaged, for it is through shared thoughts that we shape a brighter future. Okay, like I always say, if it affects one of us, it affects all of us. In this case, the number one man of the nation is in the middle of all of this crisis, should we call it? Do well to be a part of the conversation and keep your hopes, prayers, and thoughts with the nation. Of course, the program continues with Formula U, and today we learn about depression. Do we throw the word around too much? Is it actually a real phenomenon? Are we just being lazy about it? Let's look at depression, unveiling the secret that we share, or do we? We'll be right back.
Well, Nigerians should cheer up. Don't go into depressed mood. We know there's a lot of depression in the country.
Cheer up. They played well. They played well.
Bar and celebrate on their behalf. Not to drink away your sorrows.
We are not encouraged. Don't drink, please. Go and walk out to celebrate their success.